It's Wednesday, my dudes, and this is The Sweat, your much-needed nightly one-hour joyride of DFS knowledge. To my left, Jessie Coffield. To her right, head engineer here at DraftKings, Emerson Lotzia.
Please do not listen to him as usual, but here's a fact for you. In the next hour, we're looking at odds for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. What happens if the Cardinals draft Kyler Murray #1 overall? And which players will return value on tonight's 10-game NBA slate?
Speaking of the association, young lady, we're kicking off this show with a very special guest. Current radio analyst for the Pistons, former NBA strongman playing 18 seasons, never backing down from anyone. He's been punched in the face by Charles Barkley and Isaiah Thomas. Say hello to Rick Mahorn, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo!
When did I get punched in the face by Charles Barkley? We were
Well,
friends.
it was like pushed.
Like
kind
I
of in the
said,
face, like a
don't
slap-ish.
listen to a thing that he says.
I'm not listening to him.
Yeah.
I'm not. He's killing
It's
me
on
right
the
now.
internet.
You
It's
just
gotta be real.
You gotta stay with me.
It ain't on the internet. I'm
Yeah.
gonna come there and get you wherever you are.
Yeah, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true, Emerson. I think we all know that. Now, let's start with the current NBA culture right now. Like, what do you think of this super team trend, like open recruitment from players to play with their buddies? There's no genuine hate, it doesn't seem like, just social media trash talk. Coaches are generally powerless in most places because it's nothing like your heyday in the 80s.
Well, you know, there's always been super teams around. It's just the fact that now it's more prevalent with social media. I mean, you got to look at the Boston Celtics. They had Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and then they acquired someone like Luke Walton. I mean, Bill Walton, not Luke, but Bill Walton on their team to try to win the championship. And the same with the Lakers, trying to add value to their team. So, I mean, super teams have been around, but more so now it's prevalent with social media. And as long as you have that, you're always going to hear about, oh, this guy wants to hang with that guy. Plus, it's always the time where these guys have played with each other on AAU teams. So the friendship and the telephones and the modern technology created this monster.
Rick, go back to your playing days. You spent a lot of time down low with a physical edge. You were big, you were beefy. Not known for shooting the deep ball, only taking 38 in your career. But how different would that have been if you played in the league today? You think you'd shoot a little more from deep?
It was all about adjustments. Back then, it was a weapon that we really didn't choose to use. But now, I mean, it was a team that the Denver Nuggets, plus you also got to look at ABA basketball. When the two leagues combined, ABA used to have the three-pointer and that real pretty basketball. But then as everything starts to evolve, a lot of the similarities that we see in today's NBA game is similar to what the ABA was all about. Run and gun, let's shoot the threes, make it real fun. So the basketball has changed a lot. But if I was playing now, it would be more like I ain't shooting no three. I wasn't a three, but I can't shoot the three. When I did shoot it, it wasn't my thing.
So how much do you actually like today's style of playing the NBA? And could you see the league trending in this direction as you got closer to the end of your career? You kind of touched on it a little there.
No, I didn't see it. I enjoy it because it's more to a degree I enjoy it, especially regular season, but as well as I like the playoff situation because you don't see the same game. The physicality comes back into the game. Now it's more like they want the offense more free-flowing. Shot clock went down from 24 if you get an offensive rebound to 14. It's illegal. You can play zones, illegal defenses and things to that nature, but I enjoy the game. I think it's fun, especially when you're out there doing your fantasy basketball. You know, one person like James Harden can get you 50 a night.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and lots of games on tonight's slate. You were actually called the baddest bad boy of them all, just a friendly reminder, when you suited up on those late 80s Piston squad. So who were the guys you actually hated when you played?
All of them. I didn't like anybody that didn't have a uniform that said Pistons. Even in practice, I didn't like the guys on an opposing team. Even though we had the same uniform and name on it, they had a different color. So my attitude has always been a fighter. I enjoyed playing the game, and we talk about not having rivalries, but till this day, when it's all said and done, most of the guys that I see that former players, it's embracement because we knew we were bricks and pillars of this game, and it was fun.
All right, I got lost in a dark hole on YouTube today, and I saw some videos of some of the old scuffles you had. Again, Charles Barkley, that was one of them. But you guys are friends now. You guys are cool?
Oh yeah, we're cool. We talk on occasion when he picks up his phone. He's so big time now.
Yeah, he is. That's the way Jessie treats me too.
Yeah, I do that all the time, even though I see him every day, unfortunately. Well, your basketball life isn't over. You were a head coach in the Big Three Basketball League, leading the trilogy to a title with Al Harrington and Kenyon Martin. What was that experience like for you?
It was the camaraderie. You miss the camaraderie when you stop playing, because these guys are in the locker room on the same page trying to win. So winning the Big Three and going undefeated, which I think nobody will do it again, that was fun. But also when I was coaching in the WNBA and also in the NBA, I think coaching is just a fun thing to learn a lot, but also share a lot in the same instances.
All right, so the Pistons are fighting for a playoff spot here, thanks in large part to Blake Griffin. He's having a hell of a year, one of the best seasons of his career. How has he improved his game? What have you seen from him?
What I see is him encouraging most of the guys around him, because you've been at a place where Blake thought he would probably be a Clipper for the rest of his life. But next thing you know, reality sits in. This is the business of basketball. And I like the way that he's elevated Andre Drummond's game and also Reggie Jackson's game. And then you find guys, you put shooters around them, with Dwayne Casey doing a great job of orchestrating all that. That's the fun about playing in Detroit. And all of a sudden you get this winning attitude and you figure, hey, we're going to make the playoffs, but yet we just can't only make the playoffs. We got to make an impact in the playoffs.
Now, how dangerous could Detroit be in the playoffs if they can get there, currently 6th in the standings?
Very dangerous. And I think that when you say that, we have a lot of tools. We rebound the ball well. We have Blake Griffin, who's our star. But the auxiliary, the players off the bench like Luke Kennard, Ish Smith, really Langston Galloway, you need to have a deep bench going into the playoffs. And people, underestimate the way that the Pistons play. They play very good, stingy defense, kind of reminds me of the 80s when we played, but they also play with a chip on their shoulder. They got a lot to prove, and I think this year is one of those years that teams better watch out. If you got the home court advantage, especially in the East, don't feel comfortable with it.
Okay, Rick, before we let you go, Pistons will face the Timberwolves tonight. DraftKings is a fantasy company. Surprise, surprise. We like to study the numbers. Who's in line for a big game this evening?
To me, I think a big game is going to be Andre Drummond. Ooh. He's, for him being at center, he's going to get a lot of offensive rebounds. They can't keep him off the boards. I think Andre Drummond is going to do a great job. And also, I do think Blake Griffin, of course, that's Mr. Consistent, is going to do a great job as well.
Rick, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Watch out, I'm still fighting.
Yeah,
I got fighting.
Yeah, easy, man.
Hey,
easy.
Look,
come on now.
If you want Emerson's home address, I'd be happy to give it to you.
Oh, yes. Okay, you two. Cut it out. All right, we'll be back with our PGA panel talking odds for the Arnold Palmer Invitational after this. Get ready to set your sights on DraftKings' free-to-play basketball brotherhood contest. It is presented by Netflix's Triple Frontier, which stars Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal, available on March 13th. Now to play, you got to form your own brotherhood here, consisting of 5 players who can hit from deep. Why? Because only 3-pointers matter. That's it. Nothing else. Just threes. So take your best shot with 5 players from the main slate while staying under the $50,000 salary cap. Now, the more triples that fall, the more points for your brotherhood. It's just that simple. Basketball Brotherhood contest run throughout March, so step back behind the arc, make it rain for a chance to win cash prizes, all courtesy of Triple Frontier, available on Netflix March 13th.
Well, we've been previewing the Arnold Palmer Invitational all week, and we're going to keep previewing it until any actual golf is played.
Which finally happens tomorrow, BT Dub. In the meantime, DK Live's Matt Jones and Reed Fowler are going to shake things up with Chase or Fade, a DK Sportsbook edition. I know, kind of a letdown after Rick Mahorn just joined us. Yeah. Tiger Woods, though, starting the week as the favorite for this event. because he's won here 7,000 times.
7,000.
It's a lot. But after pulling out due to a neck injury, Rory McIlroy is by far the favorite at plus 650. So, Reed, please chase or fade. Rory finishes top 5 in this tournament.
I want to chase that the Mahorn's going to just punch you out. I really want to see that.
Yeah,
I would
same,
gladly take
dude.
a punch.
I would love
just
to
so I
see
can
that.
tell people I've been
it'd be
punched in the
fantastic.
face.
Anyway, back to it. Like, I'm going to fade that number just because it's too short. I mean, even getting a guy like Dustin Johnson, maybe at some other courses that are weaker fields, it's just too short in terms of the ROI, the potential win equity that guys have on the PGA Tour. But Rory talked about it, top 5 in his last 5 events. I mean, this guy in every statistical category, whether you want to look at birdies or better gain, par 5 scoring, ball striking, he's, at the elite. He's the top guy. He's been close at winning. He just hasn't closed out these tournaments yet. So top 5, sure, but at that number, it's just too short for me. So I'm gonna chase that he is gonna be in the top 5, but fade the number.
Okay, Matty, what do we think here, man? The defending champ has done everything but win to kick off this season.
Yeah, and I think obviously he's pretty close, right? Made 14 cuts in a row and been in the top 15 10 times in that stretch. Like, he's just on fire. 4 straight top 5s. Yeah, I'm definitely thinking he'll be at the top of the leaderboard, but like Reed mentioned, that price is a little tough. There's not a heck of a lot of value there.
All right, world number 3, Brooks Koepka, had a nice run at the Honda Classic, finishing T2. He's set at plus 2,500 to be the first round leader, 3rd best odds there. So, Matt, chase or fade that Brooks carries the momentum of the Honda finish to a quick start this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to fade this. If I'm betting on first round leaders, they're going to be a lot deeper than plus 2,500. And he's 190th on tour this year in first round scoring average. So he has not been necessarily the best in the beginning of the week. He obviously closes as well and can find his way to the top of the leaderboard by Sunday. But yeah, I'm gonna fade that.
Reed, you look like you agree with that right there.
Yeah, I mean, first round leader, you want to take those deeper guys. I mean, guys like HV3 at plus 8,000. Matt Every, guy who's won here twice, right? He hasn't done so well in his most recent events or his most recent times here at Arnold Palmer, but get these guys at deeper odds for first round leader because we've seen it. Although Stenson was a guy last year that just came out guns blazing at -8, you see it all the time where these guys like Harold Varner can shoot off and get, a ton of birdies. If you look at Koepka, 7 out of his last 10 first rounds, he has gained on birdie or better. But if you just look at his first round scoring over the last longer term, it doesn't pan out. He's not a guy that really comes out and gets you a ton of birdies. Can he do it? Absolutely. But kind of same in line with that Roy question. You're getting better numbers on guys or the quote unquote field. So take other guys like a Matt Every, like a HV3 at these deeper numbers.
All right, Reed, you just mentioned him, 2-time Arnold Palmer Invitational winner, Matt Every, winning in 2014, 2015. Hasn't exactly been lighting the PGA Tour on fire. I know he's 4 for 4 on cuts, but in the prop for best finish among champs, former tournament champs here, he's set at plus 1,400. So chase or fade for me here that Every can have a better finish than the likes of Rory McIlroy, Jason Day, Mark Leishman, and Phil Mickelson.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Jessie said. What? Like, no way. It's a nice prospect, right? It's a nice idea, that guy like Matt Every. And you got to look at those stats with a grain of salt, right? He's played the Puerto Rico Open. I know he played at Pebble Beach, and he did well. But these last 4 to 6 tournaments, they're the Sanderson Open, the RSM. It's that swing season where he does well. But this is his course. He's won it twice already. It's just when you look at what he's been able to do. I know he got a top 15, like I said, at the AT&T Pro-Am, but he lost strokes approach there. And this is a course where you need your irons. Obviously, you need to be putting well. And I just rather take guys like you mentioned, way more easier than a guy like Matt Every.
Matt, let's also keep in mind here, he's 2 for 2 on the Web.com tour this year.
This is true. He really he tore up that 30-second finish at the Suncoast Classic a couple weeks ago. Really amazing. Now, fade every little bit of this. I don't even think he'll beat Martin Laird this week, and he's another past champ. So, no, he's not beating Rory and Day and Leishman and Phil. No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. All right, world number 10, Francesco Molinari. That was really a tough one there. Had a top 20
You're
finish.
doing great, sweetie.
In his last tournament at the WGC Mexico. He has the 4th best odds in the prop for top European player at this tournament, so that's at plus 800. Matt Chaser fade. He can pull off a top 10 finish.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna fade the definitely fade the top European player because I think Rory's gonna beat him pretty handily. As far as the top 10, like, it wouldn't shock me. I think Molinari is one of these guys who you don't necessarily think of on courses that have a little bit of length, but he just figures out a way to perform well no matter what. And he was just blatantly disrespected by the tour, getting paired with Ted Potter and Bryce Garnett this week. So maybe he comes out a little fired up, but top 10 is reasonable, but not top European.
Reed, top 10 finish here.
Yeah, for Francesco. Yeah, I mean, Matt's right? Look at Molinari. You just look at just the pure stats, whatever you're looking through. You're going to say, okay, well, he hasn't played since Mexico, and even then he didn't do that. I mean, he had a decent finish, but nothing really kind of caught your eye with Molinari. The thing about him, though, is what we saw last year. When he gets on a streak, he's fantastic with his irons. And his course history here over the last 4 or 5 years, he's 3rd in total strokes gained. And it's pretty impressive for a guy. And if you look back, too, he doesn't need to be playing the week before or a couple weeks before. I mean, the last probably 4 or 5 times he's played this tournament and has done well. He's taken this, about 2 weeks off. And that's really where you have to weigh in recent form and course history. I'd say he has a good chance at a top 10 just because he likes this course and he likes this tournament. So top European, that's a tough one, right? Because you have Rose, Fleetwood, even Rafa RCB, Cabrera-Bello. He's a guy that is trending in the right direction for this tournament. But top 10 for Molinari, it's not bad.
All right, we'll have you guys back for PGA pin placement, last segment in the show. Next, we got price check around the NBA, but first, this little snack from the PME studios.
I mean, Leishman is a really good player. He gains strokes in all the important areas. He always rates out well at courses like this, but I just think that Hideki seems like a more optimal guy to go overweight on, though it might be hard to get overweight on Hideki if he ends up being 20% owned.
I think that he will end up 20% owned. I love Hideki this week. I bet Hideki at 28-1. I think he's dropped to 25 already. Like, he just rates out so perfectly. It's almost like the Killa Keith situation. Give the guy like stroke gained putting this week, and all of a sudden he's going to win because the ball striking has been off the charts. Looking back at past 24 rounds, he's 1st in approach, he's 12th from beyond 200 yards, he's 11th in opportunities gained. The guy just legit can't putt. But we've seen tournaments with him, like it usually happens in Phoenix, but we saw it at Memorial too, and even at the Masters, where his putting hasn't been so atrocious that get him on some of these faster surfaces, and all of a sudden Hideki starts rolling in some putts, or at least isn't missing 2 footers, which is really what you need to watch out for with him. So Day, Hideki, then I got like the Phil, Fleetwood, Molinari track to pick from. Like I said, I might just break it up into Phil and Reed in that range, but Tommy and Molinari they look so good on paper.
Yeah, Molinari, I just lock it in right now. I'll have, 25, 30% Molinari. That pretty much is the case for me every week. When he plays, he is a super positive value in most projection systems. Though I guess I should mention the data golf guys do like Tommy Fleetwood and Hideki pretty significantly more than Molinari this week. Because normally before Molinari won the British Open, he came in at, a lot closer to 8,000 in the strength of fields. And, those numbers on Molinari are gone now.
He was ripping irons in Mexico. He just couldn't put 4 rounds together, but ended up playing pretty well. I think that, like you mentioned, I like Hideki, you like Hideki, everyone's going to like Hideki. He might be the most popular, most owned player on this slate. And if we are going to fade a lot of the above 10K guys, you can take a lot of players from this $9,000 mix and mix and match, or even pair them all together if you want to. But it seems like Phil, Leishman, and Reed are the 3 that are going to garner no ownership. And you can statistically make a case that they're more inconsistent. They're not as good or safe as plays as the other guys in this range. Like, I think that Bryson and Day are sort of a cut above the rest of this range in terms of overall talent. But among that tier of like 85 to 95, if those 3 guys are going to come in at like low single digits or 5%, something like that, I think there's a viable case to be made that you just fade Hideki, you fade Tommy Fleetwood, and just take those 3 guys instead.
Yeah, and I guess the thing I would note on Hideki is him being chalky should not disqualify him from being a play, but you just need to be conscientious when building lineups with Hideki in them to do other things that are unchalky, whether it be pairing Hideki up with Justin Rose or, setting a build rule when you're making your GPP lineups that if Hideki is in a lineup, then you must use at least one of, Harold Varner or Jason Kokrak or whoever, like finding someone under 5% to pair with Hideki so that you are not building duplicated lineups.
Welcome back to The Sweat, where it is now time to take a gander at tonight's 10-game slate in the NBA. It is NBA Price Check with DK Live's Pierce Dietrich and RotoWire's Alex Barutha.
Trying to figure out which players will return value on their DraftKings salaries. And we're looking at two guards listed at over $9K. Washington's Bradley Beal at Dallas, and Luka Doncic will lead his Mavericks against the Wizards. So who's the best high-priced option in the backcourt, Alex?
Bradley Beal is definitely the safer option here. I mean, the Mavericks have lost by almost 70 combined points over the past 2 games. Something's just not right there. And yeah, maybe Doncic could have a bounce back game, but ultimately I do feel safer with Beal, who's just consistently around that 50 DraftKings points mark. I mean, just over the past, I think it's 10 games, he's averaging 53 DraftKings points. It's just, I would feel much safer in GPPs and cash games going Beal here.
Pierce, Kyrie Irving was in this group. Obviously, he's been ruled out for this evening. So what do you think?
I'll go with Doncic. And I know it's not safe, but again, yeah, they've been blown out 2 games in a row, but that doesn't mean that we can project blowouts for every single game moving forward. Sure, there's a little bit of a risk, and Dallas doesn't look good, but there's just no way they're going to get blown out every single night moving forward. This is a good spot for him. I know he didn't get points in those blowouts, but the 2 games before that where they kept it close, he had 50 fantasy points, 60 fantasy points. He looks fine. It's a pace-up game. Washington's not a good team, so you should have the ability to stuff the peripheral stats. And the recency bias is going to lower his ownership. Like we just mentioned, it seems risky, so that's good. You're going to get lower ownership on a guy who really can go off here.
At the forward position, no one, not a single human being is close to LeBron's salary of 11.3. So are you calling it a LeBron night as the Lakers host the Nuggets? Pierce.
Well, the biggest question is, when does he quit? When does he give up? And
hasn't he already?
To him, he's not going to quit anytime soon. He says unless he's injured, he's going to play. So that's a good sign. It's a bit of relief for fantasy players. And I don't see how you don't play LeBron. You're going to get 40 minutes of LeBron James on a basketball court. That seems bulletproof. That's as safe as it gets. And sure, he got 40 minutes in the past when he was on the Heat or the Cavs, but there were other good players on the court. There is absolutely no one on the court with him. He will have to do it all if by some miracle he's going to get his team in the playoffs, which is probably mathematically impossible at this point. But 40 minutes of LeBron James, I get it if you want to fit in the Joker or you're paying up a guard and you don't have the money for LeBron, that's fine. I get it. But in a vacuum, he is a good play.
Alex, can you make a case for not playing LeBron James tonight?
I think the only case for not playing LeBron would be playing one of the 76ers forwards, either Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris. The 76ers front line is still pretty decimated. Joel Embiid is out. Boban Marjanovic is out. You can get Ben Simmons for 8,900, and he's a guy who's gone for, he's averaging 57 fantasy points over the past 3 games. So value-wise, you may get as much value going Ben Simmons as LeBron James. But if you're trying to hit, if you just need to throw someone in your lineup to get a ton of points, LeBron's your guy. But, Tobias Harris on the 76ers also makes for an enticing option just because he can get rebounds as well. Someone needs to rebound the ball in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, you have a pair of centers that'll cost you north of 10K. Karl Anthony Towns playing the Pistons and Denver's Nikola Jokic facing the Lakers. Which big-priced big man is the biggest play, Alex?
I think you have to roll with Karl Anthony Towns here. He's been so hot lately. Ever since coming back from a 2-game absence, he was in a car accident, suffered a concussion. But since he's come back, he's averaging 67 DraftKings points. The Pistons will pace the Timberwolves down a bit in this matchup. They are one of the worst teams in defending centers this season. So I would be surprised if this is the matchup that Karl Anthony Towns slows down in.
Pierce, is Karl Anthony Towns too hot right now to pass up?
I don't think so. A couple weeks ago, we did a segment on lessons learned from the first half of the season, and my biggest lesson was to play the Joker more often. A lot of times I chose Karl Anthony Towns over Jokic, and it didn't really work out very often. And so I know here we are, and we've got Karl Anthony Towns is really hot. And on the other hand, the Joker, slow game against San Antonio. He's been in foul trouble the other 2 games. He's on the opposite end of the spectrum. He's been cold, but this is a great matchup. The Broncos, the Nuggets are only favored by 5 points, and that could change with the Lakers lineup that we end up seeing. But it looks like a close game. If I can get Jokic for 30 minutes against the Lakers, that seems like a real smash spot. And Towns has been known to let us down before.
Sounds like you've been thinking a little too much about Joe Flacco there, Pierce. And if you're spending all this money on top guys, you need to find value somewhere. So, Pierce, who gives you the most bang for your buck on this slate?
There's a couple of guys, and in that game, JaVale McGee is probably going to be pretty popular. Jeremy Lamb is underpriced since he's got this great role coming off the bench. His usage is through the roof. He's getting tons of minutes. He seems very safe. But now we've got Gordon Hayward all of a sudden with Kyrie Irving not playing. And I know it feels like chasing points a little bit to play Hayward again after last night. But he did the same thing earlier about a couple weeks ago when Kyrie missed a game against Philadelphia and then against Denver. Hayward had 2 really good back-to-back nights. I have no problem. I'm sure he's going to get 27 to 30 minutes in a pretty good matchup against Sacramento.
Alex, how about some value here, bud?
I have to agree. I think it's Gordon Hayward. I mean, the Kings are the fastest paced team in the league. So not only are you getting the Celtics being paced up literally as much as possible, you're getting, Gordon Hayward's usage higher than usual coming off a matchup where he looked the most confident maybe that he's ever been all season. And so, yeah, I would expect him. I think he's 3,900 right now. It's to me, it's almost difficult not to put him in your lineup just because he saves you so much money and the upside is so clearly there. So I think if there's one guy I had to narrow it down to, it'd be Gordon Hayward.
All right, you two, please hang tight because we need your help with Tears of Joy. But first, we're putting a fantasy spin on NFL news.
You have no idea. It's been one of those days. That's right after Adam Levitan delivers his top
was
fades
really bad.
on tonight's NBA slate.
It's a Wednesday in the association, 10 games on the NBA slate tonight, and we're here to identify some players you should avoid. Brendan Glasheen here for Levitan's Fadeaway with Adam Levitan. The Lakers are an absolute mess right now, Levy, and injuries a big reason why. But with those injuries comes more minutes for guys like Josh Hart. Seems like he'd be a good play with an increased role and a cheap price, $3,300. But your heart is not with Hart. Why?
Yeah, I think at this time of year, we get so many values and we see such a big score needed to win tournaments on DraftKings that when you have guys who are really poor per minute producers like Josh Hart is below 0.6 DraftKings points per minute, you start to run into problems with the ceiling. And I know he's only 3,300, but LeBron's going to dominate the ball. Rajon Rondo's going to dominate the ball. I would rather have someone on the Lakers who doesn't need the ball like JaVale McGee if I was looking to save money.
Gordon Hayward had one of his best games of the season Tuesday night against the Warriors, over 50 DK points and a big Celtics win in Oracle. So why don't you like him tonight?
Yeah, I think he'll be popular. 3,900 once again coming off of 50 DK points, but he shot 12 of 16 in that game on Tuesday night. His rebound rate was also up at 15%. Normally it's around 8%. So it's just a natural spot for aggression for Gordon Hayward, particularly when we consider that the Celtics are on a back-to-back coming off that big win. And Gordon Hayward's coming off of such a devastating injury last year. I'm still not sure how he handles back-to-backs.
Last one, Karl Anthony Towns lit up the Thunder for 41 points last night. He's the second highest priced player on this slate behind LeBron James. You're fading Cap because?
Yeah, certainly still a fine play. I think his price is starting to catch up to where he should be, and especially when we compare him to other centers. I mean, the center position is so consistently depressed in pricing. I think I'd rather take a shot with Kevin Love. I think I'd rather take a shot with Nikola Jokic. And as I mentioned, I think JaVale McGee has a chance to get up around 20 minutes in this spot tonight as well for a lot cheaper.
That's Levitan's Fadeaway. Thanks, Levy.
All right, good luck.
We're on.
Oh, wow.
Here we go.
Here we are.
I told you it was one of those days.
Yeah.
You miss football. I
Just been
miss
sitting here.
football. We all miss football. So let's talk football.
Football!
Reed Fowler, Steve Buchanan, need you all to talk football to me, please.
Yeah, more specifically, put a fantasy spin. I'm not going to try that again. On the top NFL news, a segment we like to call NFL Spin Move. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, we talked to Antonio Brown last night, but reports today have the trade going down by Friday. So, Reed, what's next for the Steelers once he's gone?
I want to keep this short because I want Bukes' response to what you guys are just doing. You got to sign some guys early, right, or in free agency. Get a guy like Randall Cobb to really win back that locker room between coach, right, and players. And so that's one. You want to run the ball a lot more. I think when you have Jalen Samuel, James Conner coming back healthy, look, the Steelers passed it the most in the league. I think around 50 attempts more than any other team. So you got to recommit to the run and then rebuild in the draft. They need a secondary. Depending on what they get for Antonio Brown, maybe it's a late first or a second round, which might be a little too high. But if they get that, they're going to have a few picks early in the draft. So rebuild in that secondary because that's what they need the most help.
Steven, what do you think? What's next for the Steelers once he's out of there?
I mean, I just want to know what's next for you guys. I mean, I don't know. Like, the show just seems like it's a little out of control today. I don't know. It's Wednesday. It's not
You
Friday,
know what,
whatever.
Steve? We don't need that type of negativity, all right?
Calm down. Go have some sushi.
I
after this.
cannot calm down.
Hey, you know what? Sushi sounds good. I'll meet you after the show.
Great, perfect.
So, look, they trade Antonio Brown. Like, you're not going to replace him, but they got to do something to get somebody in there. I mean, you look at the current free agents on the market. I mean, no one's ever going to come close to the type of production that you're going to get out of him. I've seen some names floating around, and one name that keeps popping up is Michael Crabtree. And I don't know, it seems like it wouldn't be the greatest fit. He is a red zone threat. I'll definitely give him that. We kind of have to take his production with the Ravens with a grain of salt. Obviously, that's not the pass offense that you'd want to be featured in. But I mean, he's going to be 30. He is 32 years old already. It, like Reed said, it depends on really what they get back for him and what kind of value they're going to get. Maybe they can flip that into something else. But yeah, the draft's probably going to be the way to go. This free agent class is brutal for wide receivers. So I don't know. It's going to be a tough year for the Steelers, I think.
Rumors are swirling here, gentlemen, about the Cardinals loving Kyler Murray
him.
at number 1 overall, and they're shopping Josh Rosen for a first or second round pick. Okay, two-parter question here. Reed, who do you think would be willing to pay, and who would be the best fit?
Willing to pay for Rosen? I mean, it really got to think about where, like, what's his potential, right? We so early on, and we heard it last year when he was touted as one of the top quarterbacks. I mean, if you're the Patriots, I think you're willing to get something, right? If they're willing to give up their last pick in the first round or the second round, they got a lot of picks in the draft this year. I think you could get. I mean, he's going to demand because of his potential and because of his age. He's going to demand at least a second, or maybe even a late first. And so, yeah, I'd say that he's worth it because really it's part of the management's issue. If you look at their draft picks of the last since Patrick Peterson, and you can run down the list, Michael Floyd, Deion Buchanan, DJ Humphries, Hassan Reddick. I mean, these guys are terrible. So for me, it's not so much of a Rosen issue as much as it's that offense. And they didn't even let the coach out the entire season. So, yeah. I mean, I think he's worth at least an early second round, and I'd pay it.
And you really think that Murray's like built for Cliff Kingsbury's like new system too. So Steve, what do you think? Maybe like the Giants, Dolphins, Redskins, Reed mentioned the Patriots.
So I agree with what Reed was saying, but if you listen to Peter King from NBC Sports, he said a third round pick might actually be enough to get the deal done. And to me, that's absolutely insane. If that's what it's going to take to get Rosen, there should be 31 other teams that are interested. You're basically getting first round value for a third round pick, and it's just a year out of the draft. It'd be insane for anybody to pass that up. Honestly, I know they just got Joe Flacco. The Broncos would be crazy not to do this. I mean, Flacco is not your future. 34 years old. He's injury prone. If they don't ramp up that offensive line, good luck getting him past, week 2 at that point. I mean, Rosen should be the guy in Denver. It just makes a lot of sense there. They're going to go through a rebuild. What better time to get somebody like Rosen in there if they're not going to draft a quarterback? But yeah, I mean, if it's going to take a third round pick, really anybody should be taking them. The Chargers could be another team that could look at it too. Phillip Rivers is not going to be thrown forever. I mean, I think he's still got 5 more kids to make before he retires. So, I mean, he's got to think about retiring at some point. So I think the Chargers makes a lot of sense, but really, it really should be the Broncos.
Yeah, what is it, like 15 and counting or 8? I don't know. It's too many. Ravens cut safety Eric Weddle, who says he will not retire. So what's the market for him, Steve? I mean, he's coming off 3 consecutive Pro Bowl appearances with Baltimore, so not really surprising that he wants to keep playing.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's going to be a tough market, but all of a sudden the safety market kind of feels oversaturated. You see all these guys that are suddenly going to be free agents now this season. look, he's not going to have any problem finding a home, but he's not going to get anything long-term. He's getting up there in age now, but I think the team that makes the most sense is the Giants. They just released Landon Collins, so now they're going to get, a pretty comparable replacement, cheaper, a little bit older, but obviously, Weddle is still completely competent in playing. So I think the Giants make a lot of sense there. But look, he's not going to have any problem finding a home. He's probably not going to get the money that he wants out there, being how old he is, but should have no problem latching on with another team fairly quickly.
Reed, do you agree? Might not be a ton of money, probably not going to be too many years there on a contract, maybe a one-year deal somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And a team that I'm looking at as well, and Giants is a great call. I think Dallas, when you look at what they need, especially right in that secondary, they have a young defensive core that obviously played extremely well last season. And Eric Weddle, look, you're not going to be able to pay for a guy like Earl Thomas or even Landon Collins in Dallas, and especially if you want to sign Dak to that long-term $27 to $30 million that Jared Jones is talking about. You're going to need some of these guys like an Eric Weddle who can really solidify that veteran presence in that young defense that we really, really liked watching and playing last year in DST. So I do like the Giants, but I think Dallas is going to make a run because Earl Thomas and these other guys are going to be too expensive, I think, especially if you want to sign Dak to that long-term deal.
All right, with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt now in the backfield, Duke Johnson's apparently drawing trade interest in Cleveland. Where could be a good fit for him, and how much fantasy value would he have as a number one back? Reed.
I think the Eagles, if you look at the Eagles, Detroit is actually something that I'm looking at. I don't think we've seen him as a number one before, right? When these guys have gotten hurt or he's had that chance. Maybe Duke Johnson is just not a good number one guy. He's a good gadget player. But if you look at what the Eagles are doing, Ajayi, Sproles are free agents, right center, and Blunt are free agents in Detroit. And if you look at what Matt Patricia potentially wants to do, he wants to run the ball with Kerryon Johnson. He obviously wants to have those guys on offense, the mini Megatron. Right now in terms of what they're able to do in that offense. But if you get a guy of his caliber, right, is sort of Swiss Army knife type running back like Duke Johnson in Detroit, I think he's going to work really well. They're 13th in salary cap space, so they have the space. And he's not that expensive. I mean, base salary just under $2 million, so he's not going to be an expensive pay up. So Detroit or the Eagles for me for Duke Johnson.
And Steve, it may not make much sense right now shipping him out with Hunt's looming suspension. So let's take this with a grain of salt here.
Yeah, so obviously they definitely want to wait and see how that plays out. But I agree with Reed that the Eagles are a fit. I think the Buccaneers should be a fit too. I mean, they need a passing down back. And their answer thus far, they just signed Andre Ellington. Like, where did they scrape him up from? Like, are you kidding me? That's going to be your answer to a passing down back? I mean, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. Duke Johnson is not a number one running back. I mean, like Reed said, we've seen it before. He's not that guy. He's a Darren Sproles-esque younger version of him right now. He's going to be good for the quick checkdowns, the passing down plays. That's where he's going to excel. So a team like the Buccaneers, who really didn't have that type of guy last season, and it's not going to be Andre Ellington this year, I think this would be a perfect landing spot for him. I think it makes a ton of sense for them. It would just give them another dynamic to that offense that they really didn't have last season. So I think Duke Johnson at the Buccaneers would be a no-brainer.
And that'll do it for football talk tonight. Have a blessed night, Steven. Reed, we need you for PGA pin placement coming up. But first, it's NBA Tears of Joy.
But first, it's Triple Frontier Basketball Brotherhood picks with Julian Edlow. And you?
March 6th's NBA Basketball Brotherhood contest presented by Netflix's Triple Frontier, starring Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal, out on March 13th. Julian, three-pointers are the only way to rack up points in this contest, but if you want the sharpshooters, you're going to have to pay up. So whose matchup is enticing enough to break the bank for?
Yeah, well, the last time we had one of these slates, Buddy Hield was the most expensive player on the slate, and I decided to pay below him for Kemba Walker. This time, Kemba Walker is the most expensive player, but I want to go below him for Buddy Hield at $13,000. Look, he attempts 7.6 three-pointers per game. He's shooting over 44% from downtown. He's knocked down at least three three-pointers in each of his last 5 games. So going up against the Celtics team that's really been unraveling lately, I think I'm paying up for Buddy Hield.
To pay up, you got to save elsewhere. So whose matchup makes their price a steal?
Yeah, I actually think Jay Crowder for $9,100 is a guy that could go overlooked on this slate. He's actually been shooting pretty well lately, knocking down more than 3 threes in 6 of his last 10 games. And in 3 of those last 6 games, he's actually knocked down 4 three-pointers. That includes his last game on Monday night in this exact matchup against the New Orleans Pelicans. He shot 4 for 7 from downtown. So I really like him going right back into this same matchup to be able to make 3 or 4 threes.
Finally, your slate approved pick, your must play. Who's your lock to be on fire from 3?
Yeah, it's actually Kevin Love for $10,000. He had to shake off a little bit of rust when he first came back from that injury. He was out since October, but once he did, he's been really, really good. He's knocked down at least 3 3-pointers in each of his last 5 games. That includes 6 triples against Memphis. I think he's in a good matchup against Brooklyn that he should be able to score in and keep knocking down from downtown.
Julian, thanks for getting us up to speed for this basketball brotherhood contest presented by Triple Frontier, starring Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, and Pedro Pascal, out on Netflix March 13th. I'm Jessie Coffield. We'll see you next time.
Turning our attention back to the NBA, Pierce Dietrich and Alex Barutha. Before we hit tears of joy, what late-breaking injury or lineup news should people be aware of right now? Pierce.
Kyrie's out, so you can play Gordon Hayward and not think anything about it. You can also play basically any of the Boston Celtics value plays. They're all safe cash plays, and any of them can work in GPP. We've seen this before when Kyrie's out. We never exactly know whose night it's going to be. So if you want to sprinkle in another Boston player with Gordon Hayward, you should be fine.
Alex, what can you add to that?
I guess just a couple of things. Rudy Gay is going to start for the Spurs because Jakob Poeltl is out, so he could see increased minutes. And then we're still kind of just waiting on the news whether or not Brandon Ingram's going to play. And a lot of that might determine whether people are going to lock in LeBron James or not.
All right, now we can roll the Tears of Joy open.
Do it.
Which means we're looking at tonight's Tears contest. And who would be your guy in Tier 5, Alex?
I'm going to go with DeAndre Ayton. He's coming off a pair of really good games against both Milwaukee and the Lakers. He's going up against the Knicks, who allow the second most rebounds per game. Ayton's obviously a great rebounder, and the Knicks they allow the 8th most shot attempts in the restricted area. Ayton's a pick and roll guy. I think the matchup just sets up really well for him, despite the fact that there is some good rim protection in New York with DeAndre Jordan and Mitchell Robinson.
Pierce, who are you going with?
I'm going with DeAndre Ayton as well. If you give me 33 minutes against the New York Knicks, it's going to be pretty hard to pass that up. And over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 17 points, 10 rebounds. I got to believe against the Knicks, who allow the 5th most fantasy points, I'm going to get a little bit more usage than that. There is concern. He has almost fouled out of his 3 of his last 4 games. But how about this for a small little narrative? Phoenix is going to win possibly 3 games in a row, if you believe that. Now, they actually have a 3-game win streak earlier this season. And when they did that, guess who they beat on the 3rd game? It was the New York Knicks.
I see Al Horford in Tier 5. You were just praising every Celtics player. Why not him?
I'm going to go with Rajon Rondo. And I guess a little bit this hinges on whether Ingram plays or not. But since they put him into the starting lineup, and I hate myself for playing Rajon Rondo because it's a rough thing to do. But since they put him in the starting lineup, he's performed 3 of his last 4 games. He's getting 37 minutes. He had 2 48 fantasy point games, 60 fantasy point game. There just isn't anyone else on that team. If Ingram is out, you look at the roster, you've got LeBron James, and then Rondo is second in line to get points. It's pretty disgusting for a Lakers fan and for a fan of basketball in general. But fantasy purposes, Rondo's hitting, and I don't see why that would change tonight.
Alex, we're on to Tier 6. Who's your guy?
In Tier 6, I like Joe Ingles. Ingles has played, he started off the year really slow. I don't even know if started off the year. He's just had a bad year in general. But he's put things together lately. He's been handling the ball a lot more. He's averaging 35 fantasy points over the past 6 games. Going up against the New Orleans Pelicans, that's a pace-up game for the Jazz. Also, the Pelicans have the 24th best defense, or I should say 6th or 7th worst defense in the league. So I think this is a spot where I would trust Ingles to keep things rolling.
All right, last one. Slate-approved pick time. Who you got, Alex?
I'm going with Gordon Hayward. It's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination that he'll have a great game, but what you're getting for the price and the game script with the Kings being so fast-paced and Kyrie being out, I think it's hard to avoid him.
All right, Pierce, who's your slate-approved pick?
Doing the exact same thing. I think you got to switch to Gordon Hayward. He's got to be number 1 on the board for every single person playing tonight. I'm interested to see what his ownership is going to be tonight because it seems like a sure thing.
Okay, we will update everyone tomorrow night. Thanks for the help. Matt and Reed are back one more time for PGA Pin Placement, predicting where some of the top golfers will finish after our final DK Fantasy Flash.
Hey, it's Adam Kaufman with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. 4 games in the NHL tonight, so let's take a look at a couple of guys you may want to consider targeting for this slate. Toronto's Mitch Marner is on fire lately. He'll cost you $6,900 in salary. Right winger has 10 points his last 4 games. He is averaging better than 7 DK points a contest. Leafs in Vancouver to take on the Canucks, who have lost 6 of 7, something to consider there. And Marner's whole line has been racking up the points. It's not just him. So consider pairing him with John Tavares, 7,300, or the less expensive Zach Hyman at 4,200. All the way on the other side of the continent, Flyers are going to host the Capitals. Jacob Voracek out for Philadelphia with a lower body injury. That means you can find value elsewhere, such as the Philly wingers. Oscar Lindblom, someone to consider, only 4,300, likely playing on that top line with Claude Giroux and Sean Couturier. Lindblom, 7 points his last 10 games. He's been hot. 18 minutes of ice time with Voracek out of the lineup on Sunday. Flyers have won 4 out of 5. They will continue to play desperate hockey as the season winds down, and the playoff hopes still just a smidge alive.
All right, a lot to get to, and actually, surprisingly, a lot of time. Like 10 minutes here. It's PGA Pin Placement with Matty J and Reed Terrence Fowler, father of Kolu.
Kolu's a dog, just so everyone knows. All right, time to predict where the following guys will finish in the Arnold Palmer Invitational, which tees off tomorrow down in Orlando. So, Reed, starting with 2017 champion Mark LEISHMAN.
Yeah, I mean, Mark LEISHMAN has played well here before. He stats out pretty nicely, odds at 28-1. So everything looks good. I just don't really have a pulse on LEISHMAN, and that's probably because of that finish in WGC Mexico where he just lost a ton of strokes in every facet of his game. He's one of those guys, though, right, that when it's a difficult course or difficult field, he's one that always goes unnoticed. He's coming in around 12 to 15%, but I got him around 17th, 18th place. I still think he does well because if you look at strokes gained par 5, ball striking, even putting and par 3 scoring, which are probably going to be some of those key metrics that we have to look at for tomorrow and then this weekend, he stats out pretty nicely. So I'm going to say just inside the top 20, around 18.
Okay. He's had 5 top 10s in 2019. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, right now I'm gonna go with like a top 10, like maybe 7th or 8th place. I think we can throw out Mexico. Like he lost like 9.5 strokes putting alone. Like just it was as disastrous as it possibly could have been for him. He has the 3rd longest cuts made streak on tour right now at 15 straight cuts. So I'm not terribly concerned about him just like completely bombing out. And he does have 3 top 5s in his last 5 events. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable putting him in my lineups this week.
I just kind of want him to do bad so we can get him at Augusta like at 30-1. That's his spot.
That's like best case scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Matt, Tommy Fleetwood, where will his final resting place be on the Bay Hill leaderboard?
Jeez, R.I.P. God.
Jeez, that got pretty dark there.
Yeah.
We did really well picking Gary Woodland as the winner last week, and he finished 36th. So I'm just going to go back to the well, and I think Fleet God is going to come through with the victory here.
36, R.I.P. in peace.
Yeah, not the best pick for me last week, but yeah, I mean Fleetwood is he's one of the most talented guys on tour in my mind. I think he can go low as often as anybody else on tour. He had that miraculous made cut a couple years ago where he opened with like a 78 and then shot 66 on Friday to make the cut. Yeah, I feel like he's primed to win one of these events coming up soon, and I think this is as good a week as any.
All right, Reed, his stateside schedule starting to pick up here, entering his 3rd career Bay Hill start. Prior finishes of T26, T10. So what about this time around?
Yeah, he's one of the rising stars, the European stars, right? I think he knows that, and he has to really perform. And like you mentioned, he's getting a lot of publicity, and for good reason. He's really good. So I got him in the top 10, just right around 9th or 10th, just because in terms of what we want here, like he's got a 26th and a 10th here in his last 2 starts at Arnold Palmer, and he's not losing that many strokes in terms of approach at this course. We know what he can do in the par 5s. We know what he can do in those long par 4s. and he can be elite with his wedges. And he calls his shot when he says, I'm going to try and beat Johnny Miller's record at the Open. He almost does it, right? Just misses sort of a 7-foot putt that goes left to right, which he could have easily made. So Fleetwood can easily go low. I like him as first-round leader potentially, but probably ninth. This is a strong field. Again, I like these guys at Augusta. I like these guys at the Players, so I'm kind of hedging my bet a little bit.
Okay. Well, Reed, HENRIK Stenson finished 4th here last year. Where does he finish this time around?
I have no idea.
Oh,
No,
okay.
like Stenson, I think top 25. And I tweeted this out earlier in the week. He started at 70-1. I think he's down to 55-1 right now because of that course history. 4 of the last 5, I think he's got a top 5, and he has a missed cut in there. It could be because of a wrist injury, back injury, what have you. Stenson's been known to do that quite a bit. But it's just his current form is so off the charts bad right now. We just don't know where his game is. We know that when he has it dialed in, when he has that 3-wood dialed in, which you don't need here, you don't need distance, he is one of the best. He's only dropped about 9 spots in the world golf ranking to 36th. And at this event last year, I think he was in the top 15. So he can easily turn it on and just don't know when. So again, top 25 for me.
Matt, where are you going on HENRIK Stenson?
Yeah, I feel like I am just like constantly playing whack-a-mole with HENRIK Stenson. Like I never get the guy right. I think over the last, he's sort of been alternating between either hitting lots of greens and hitting 0 putts, or making all of his putts and hitting 0 greens. So that's not usually the best combo for success. So I'm going to say like somewhere in like the 35 to 40 range, I think is reasonable. Yeah, I'm not sold that he's 100% right now. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes out this week.
Adam Hadwin. He's made 8 straight cuts. Hasn't played since the Genesis Open. Matt, what do you think?
If you had the final 2 rounds that he had at the Genesis Open, I think you would take a couple weeks off too. He shot 77 both days on the weekend there, and just completely ejected from the tournament. I'm a little concerned about his game right now. I think out of his last 12 rounds, he's only had 4 in the 60s, and like I mentioned, he's had a couple blow-up rounds. I'm going to say he misses the cut this week. I'm not sold that he's fully with it right now. I think he has some things to work out in his game. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he doesn't play the weekend.
Reed, are you brave enough to say he does play the weekend?
Yeah, I think he does. I think he gets like a top 50. I mean, that's kind of close to being cut anyway, right? I mean, top 70 make it, but he absolutely ejected at Genesis. I mean, he lost close to 13 or 14 strokes total. Lost every stroke imaginable in any strokes gained key metric, from putting all the way to off the tee. And this is worrisome for Hadwin. We've known that even last year when we saw him do well in a lot of these stretches, and then for some reason he just stopped playing well, and he didn't tell us that he had an injury. I mentioned this before on the show that the PGA, you don't need to tell us that you have an injury. They can just say we're withdrawing. Kind of like how Tiger did. He has a neck strain that went back from 2 weeks, and he just didn't tell us, and then all of a sudden he told us on Monday. So Hadwin is a guy that you worry about him. His approach is where his game is great, his putting as well. And when that's not happening, you just don't want to be on him. But course history says that he does well here. Strokes gained approach here does well, but I mean, there's no faith in the recent form. So I give him a 49.
All right, who's your lock of the tournament, Reed? We're also going to ask another question after this because we have like 5 minutes.
No,
so.
just ask him.
God.
Slate approved.
Some infighting with our host. I like it.
Yep.
No, yeah, my lock is Hideki. I just think he's a streak player. He's on one of those streaks right now. His irons are in top form. So give me the bot.
Matt, Slate approved pick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Fleetwood would be the pick here. Since you guys have a couple more questions, I'll talk about some other guys after.
Okay. Oh,
wow.
cool.
I'm panicking. Okay, I want to know.
Professional broadcaster,
I want to know. I'm going to give you the top 10 price players right now, and I want you to give me who you are fading out of those top 10. Starting with you, Reed. McIlroy, Rose, Fowler, Koepka, Day, DeChambeau, Leishman, Matsuyama, Mickelson, Fleetwood. Those are all the big money guys. Mickelson, and why? Why?
Yeah, Fowler, Mickelson. Fowler, I mean, you worry, right? I talked about it yesterday, the day before. It's just when you look at his strokes gained approach, especially on the weekend. I mean, I think only 2 of the last 4 or 5 tournaments on the weekend he's gained strokes approach. And that scares you. He's a great putter, and that's what saves him. Obviously, I love Ricky, but I'm fading him. And Mickelson, just never have a pulse on that guy. I just don't think he's going to do well here. The rough is pretty deep. He can be streaky with his driver. So those are two guys I'm fading.
I've got like 5 lineups filled out. Mickelson is in one of them, Reed. Matt, your thoughts out of the top 10. Who are you fading, bro?
You're not gonna like my answer then either, Emerson.
Oh shoot!
it's absolutely Phil.
Oh!
Like I can tell myself a story honestly to get on any of the rest of these guys, but I can't get there with Phil right now.
Yeah, so I'm definitely not going to put him in any of my lineups because they just both said to fade him. So
That's okay.
that makes sense.
Working against the grain. You got another question?
Yeah, Reed, what's up with Tiger not playing, huh? What do you think the reason was?
This is like a really bad like open mic stand-up side.
What's the deal with Tiger's neck?
This
Matt,
kind of scares
do you know?
with this scares you with Tiger. You really hope it's not a cascading event. We saw it last year. We see a lot of times with these golfers too. They say, well, it's just a little strain. I want to make sure I'm ready for the players. I want to make sure I'm ready for the major tournaments. But obviously, we know with his 4 back surgeries and back infusions, whatever they're called, it's really scary because a guy like Tiger can go into these type of cascading events where you just don't know and you're kind of scared. And I hope, right? I hope he said it before. He's got to pull back his schedule. He can't play as much as he did towards the end of the season last year. So I'm a little worried because a neck strain, especially in golf or anything to do with your back, it's really tough.
Yeah, Matt, I mean, are you going to be bullish on him going into TBC, or is it going to be like a great opportunity to get him at low ownership?
TBC.
Well, yeah, this is the thing that's kind of bugging me at least for this week. Like McIlroy and Rose probably would have seen lower ownership if Tiger was still in the field. So that could have been, it could have made for more interesting decisions at the top this week. As far as TPC goes, like if he's playing, I can't imagine that he goes too low owned, honestly. It really depends on if we get any more news in the next week or so. But yeah, I don't think the days of the Tiger ownership discount are going to be too often in 2019.
All right, dark horse. Someone under 8K.
Reed.
Really a dark horse. Luke List. He's the guy that we always, everyone like me to Pat Mayo favorite, obviously, but Luke List is someone that you like the ball striking, right? Just if he can get his putting working, he's some guy. And then Bud Cauley. I really like Bud Cauley. He got in because Tiger withdrew, so he had a bad car accident, and now he's working his way back. He's got some good finishes, so those are my 2 guys.
Matt, I like Michael Thompson. I don't know what he's done. He's figured it out, though.
Oh man, you're killing me. You're killing me tonight, Emerson. I am fully out on Thompson. I'll take some Joaquin Neiman shares and some Sung Jae Im. I think these young guys, they're both 20 years old, and I think they're primed to break out sometime soon. Im would have been probably like 7,900 if he didn't have a bad round on the weekend last week. He was the 36-hole leader last week, and then he just blew it on Saturday.
And we've seen Neiman at 30 to 1 last year in some spots. Now he's 175 to 125 to 1. That's a great call.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you.
You guys are incredible. Thanks for sticking with us through the end there. This is The Sweat. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Watch us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and the DK Live app. So 6 p.m. tomorrow. We'll see you then.